Some people say that decentralized science is just crypto crowdfunding for scientists. Traditional science can be frustrating. It's often cliquish, abusive, and filled with unnecessary ego. And research dollars are increasingly going to a small gerontocracy of elites. This is probably why the concept of decentralized science, or DeSci, was created. But how does DeSci differ from traditional science? How do scientists raise money for their experiments? And does DeSci have a future? DeSci is new and constantly changing. However, I've spent many hours reading DeSci documentation and have interviewed several leaders in the space. And I hope that this video is perfectly balanced. First, we need to understand traditional science. Science funding isn't rocket surgery. Investors are people with more money than time. Scientists are people with more time than money. And when you combine them, you create the future. Scientists are basically salesmen who spend a lot of their time begging for money. In TradSci, this often comes from a singular institution such as a charity, government, or patient advocacy group, and then the science is often done by university students. The pressures in this world are enormous, and this has led to fraud and an inability to replicate many papers. And more than 70% of researchers have tried and failed to reproduce another researcher's work. For example, a lot of Alzheimer's research appears to have been based on a lot of fraud, where it's claimed that a researcher falsified his Western blots. And while his paper was retracted, an Alzheimer's mafia kept this line of research going, instead of funding research into more promising areas. Science funding is like a beauty pageant, where it can say more about judges' preferences than actual substance. I've never actually met a scientist who didn't criticize our current system. And despite receiving tens of billions of dollars, TradSci still hasn't cured the depression, loneliness, and imposter syndrome that many researchers experience. But will DeSci allow an aggressive peer review of the status quo? The fundamentals of DeSci are not that different. Investors with too much cryptocurrency meet with scientists who have too much time to create the future. The investors are typically other scientists, charities, crypto degenerates, and patient advocacy groups. When scientists request money for an experiment, these investors can contribute simultaneously as much or as little money as they want towards this experiment. And because it's based on decentralized finance, investments can be fractionalized and resold. The research agreements and intellectual properties are contained on the blockchain in something called an IP NFT. No, not in the form of a monkey JPEG. IP NFTs contain the rights to a specific piece of intellectual property, and investors purchase intellectual property tokens that are associated with this IP NFT, which allows them to vote on what to do with the IP. It's sort of like owning equity shares of a science experiment. At this point, you're probably saying, I don't care, where's my funding? So I can go back to my cave and do science. To apply for funding, you go to catalyst.molecule.xyz and you scroll down the page to submit your project, where we'll go through due diligence and people will have the opportunity to fund it. In only a few years, over $30 million has been raised for science experiments. These projects are often associated with decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs, which are sort of like specialized blockchain-based VC funds. For example, HairDAO is raising money to fight baldness, and has become very popular in the crypto community due to the fact that everyone has lost hair day trading meme coins. When the government is calculating whether to fund cancer or baldness, they're probably going to choose to fund cancer, which means it's up to the public to fund research into this area. But who are the investors in these projects, and will they make any money? Conventional investing advice is simple. You make regular contributions to an index fund, because it will probably increase as long as the economy is growing. Depending on who you ask, the stock market is either too rational or too irrational to beat this technique using day trading, which is why Warren Buffett said that index funds are straight bussin'. Biotech stocks are even more complex, and I once lost all of the cash I invested in a biotech stock, not because the science was bad, but because they used the wrong patient population in the phase 3 trial. Biotech relies on a regulator's approval to determine success. Results of phase 3 trials bring the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. Hopefully, investors will speak to their financial advisor so they can understand that there's no guarantee of positive return. It should be noted that this is a new area, and regulators will likely start to ask questions at some point. This is because medical science treats pain, and lawyers profit from it. So what can we make of all of this? DeSci promises to democratize funding, but will it do that, or is it just a science meme coin? As any financial expert can tell you, the only guarantee that comes with investment is entertainment, and investors need to understand that biotech is very difficult, and scientific discoveries can take years to translate to market. I'm not smart enough to know if DeSci can unlock inefficiencies in the market that traditional cash funding can't. But what I have noticed is that there's a metaphorical firewall between the normies and the crypto degens. A lot of normies don't want to go through the hassle of converting cash to crypto. Meanwhile, crypto bros are looking for something tangible to invest their internet money in. DeSci appears to be increasing liquidity that's available for funding science, and this will cause the amount of science to increase. In other words, do we want crypto bros funding monkey JPEGs or monkey science? In my opinion, the latter is better for society. In today's video, we cover the differences between TradSci and DeSci, how scientists can get some of that funding, and whether or not it's a good investment. Have any topics you'd like me to cover in the future? Let me know in the comments. And remember to like and subscribe to support me.